All right, and we are live yet again, my friends, for the next episode, Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A here on the RDP YouTube channel, as well as Facebook, the YouTube and RDP Instagram channel, and also on Twitch. So if you're a Twitcher, which I know nothing about, but hey, I can send it there, you can find that here as well, where we are helping you be fit and live free by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly. Today's sponsor is, well, me and all of the resources that I always recommend to help you achieve the body you want without habits that are compromising your quality of life. Down below, like all the books that I write, like Smart Bodyweight Training, Grand Style Calisthenics, but also some of the equipment resources that I recommend, like the NOSC suspension straps, which is basically a weight machine that fits in your pocket. And I'm going to be bringing up a lot of these things throughout today's episode. So those are all down below in the description. So today is a little bit of a timely topic. We're talking about, will AI basically be the fitness savior that we're all hoping for? Or is it basically going to enslave humanity like we always see in the movies? And to kind of kick this off, I wanted to give you a little bit of a story on why I think that the AI revolution can be one of the best things for fitness. And then we'll go over some of the pitfalls and why it's probably not going to quite be the saving grace we hope it is. But back in the early aughts, before like things really started to kick off as far as data collection goes, I had all sorts of tech decked out on my bike and on my person every time I went for a ride and a run. Because I was in the industry, the fitness industry, and they were always coming around. This is, of course, before smartwatches and even Fitbits, but I had a Timex, I guess you could kind of call it a smartwatch, but it was geared towards just collecting a ton of data when I was out on my bike rides. So I had the smartwatch, plus I had a little GPS unit that I had to wear on my arm because we didn't have that technology to put it all in the watch just yet. I had my heart rate strap, and you could even get upgrades to this that had things like power meters and speed and all these other things that were collecting data from your bike. So I was really excited about this. I was like the Terminator robot every time I went out for a ride. I'm getting geared up like Iron Man, all this tech all over me and everything. And so I would do this for several weeks. And then you would take the watch and you'd have to plug it into your computer with a USB drive and upload all the data after every run, and it would organize it in graphs and spreadsheets and everything. And after about 2 or 3 months of this, I was looking at the graphs and everything, and I just kind of looked at it like, so? Like, I've got average heart rate and max heart rate and minimum heart rate and average speed and incline and all this stuff. But I kept looking at it going, what do I do with all of this information? Because it was just collecting on my hard drive. But when it came to actually going out for a bike ride and being able to try and do my best at it, most of the decisions still boil down to my friend saying, hey man, my legs are kind of tired from that hike we did yesterday. Do you mind if we just do a ride out to Bolton Valley instead of riding up App Gap, which is one of the tallest climbs, steepest climbs in Vermont? I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? And that was basically the decisions on my rides. And one of the things that I learned from that experience was that we've got a lot of ways to collect data and information. But if the information and data isn't helping us to make better decisions about how we can improve our lifestyle habits, then it's just another form of entertainment. And I see this sort of thing happening time after time. We've got the Fitbits. About a year or two ago, a company reached out to me saying, would you review our smart scale? Collects all this data and stuff. And usually I don't like doing product reviews for things I'm not using or things that I have no experience with, because 9 times out of 10, I look at it, I'm like, yep, that's not really going to be doing anything. That's pretty much junk. But I was like, yeah, sure. I'm curious about these things that can collect all this data. And I basically arrived at the same consensus, was that, yeah, you're getting a lot of information and data, but information alone is not going to be the savior that we hope it will be in guiding us to the promised land in anything in life, especially when it comes to health and fitness. And yes, I remember a time when this new thing called the internet was coming about, and it was supposed to drive a bit of a utopian experience in many areas in life, but especially fitness. People are like, oh, you're going to have so much access to information. It's going to be great. You're going to be able to watch YouTube videos for workouts, and you're going to get so much information on how to get in shape. And all these textbooks, I remember my professors in college teaching me that all these textbooks of information, you're just going to be able to read it right off the internet. It's information for all. It's going to save us, and it's going to not make us so confused and paralysis by analysis on how we should actually eat right and live better. And of course, as we now know, it's like, no, that did not pan out. We've got a ton of information, but we don't know what to do with it. And when we don't know what to do with that data, it just ends up making sometimes the problems even worse. We have more confusion, we have more debate, we have more paralysis by analysis. And it's kind of like we're trying to consume more information to try and beat it. But the more we get of different opinions and ideas out there on the internet, it's just contributing more to the problem. So the first reason why I'm excited about the AI revolution, this is something I mentioned in the video that I made on that smart scale, was that collection of data is one, a lot of times unreliable. And think of like pedometers and fitness trackers and stuff. It's really not nearly as accurate as we think it is. But nonetheless, if we can see changes in trends, that's more important information. But two, all that information doesn't really do us any good unless we have something that helps us make better decisions on what we can do with that information. And so that's what I was kind of mentioning in that video of whoever made the scale. It was like, if you guys really want to make something that's going to change people's lives, collect the data, but then feed it through some sort of algorithms and programs and stuff that say, okay, judging on this trend that's happening, we now recommend that you change this about your diet or change this about your lifestyle or your activity or something, and create like an internet of things, a network of devices that can all talk to itself. And that's where the real revolution is going to come from. It's not telling you information, but instead giving you actual guidance based off that information. And that's what I think this AI revolution is going to do. It's finally going to give us some recommendations on what we can do. And that's going to give us a big leg up in our fitness industry. However, don't count your chickens before they hatch, because there's some serious pitfalls that can still be happening from this, which we'll get into. But let's see about some folks coming on in. Yes, I know, folks, that I am coming in on a Sunday here. I was out all day yesterday, actually partying with some friends of mine. It was the Kentucky Derby yesterday, and my friend is known for having these fantastic Derby parties, and I was partaking in that. And it was a great time. I won best dressed. I actually won kind of like this cheesy suit and everything, and won a bottle of bourbon. What was it? Jefferson's bourbon for it. So I was very happy for free booze. But the bottom line is I was very occupied yesterday, so that's why we're doing it on Sunday. But when the idea of changing things around is something that we're going to adapt, because today I'm doing the podcast here on Sunday rather than my usual Saturday. And that kind of adaptive mindset of, well, okay, I'm not going to get it today, I'm going to have to get it in tomorrow, is something that is going to be key as we're soon going to be exploring. But let's get to some comments and questions here. The Sneakiest, it's good to see you again, my friend, says, Matt, do you listen to music? So what genres or artists? No, I never listen to music. Music is the soul of the devil. Beelzebub. I will never listen to music. And everyone who, no, of course, I'm joking. Yeah, I have a very eclectic musical taste, though, my friend. I used to work at a gym, and I had like this old iPod back then. Yes, when iPods, this is before smartphones. And I had an old iPod that I had just had lying around with a bunch of my music. And I just kept it at the gym because every once in a while, a friend would come in or someone would come in and be like, oh, I don't have my music or anything like that. Do you have anything? I'm like, yeah, here, sure, listen to this iPod. And then after the workout, they'd come up to me and I'd be like, so, what'd you think of my playlist and stuff? And they just look at me like, oh, don't ever give me that. I've got some eclectic taste. But no, I'm a big punk and punk rock kind of guy. I grew up in the 90s and 2000s with the third wave of ska was really big in New England. We had New York, we had Boston, we had Montreal, which was kind of a third wave ska music scene, and they all came through Vermont. So I grew up listening to a lot of that. Just last night, I went out to a Fishbone concert. So that was fun with a friend of mine. And so that's what I listen to a lot. And I listen to a lot of like EDM instrumental stuff, especially if I'm working out, things that don't have a lot of lyrics and stuff that can kind of distract me. I need something to really hone in and focus. But yeah, I listen to most anything these days. But energy is always what I'm looking for. It's either music that chills me out and makes me really mellow, like some smooth jazz or something, or something that is really hardcore, puts me in a mosh pit and makes me want to just destroy everyone around me. It's usually one of those two things. So very good question. Thank you. I'd love to hear what you folks listen to. What do you guys like to listen to when you're working out? Do you like upbeat stuff? Do you like hip hop? I know a lot of people I train, this is a great thing about streaming music is I can play anything for my clients. So I'm like, what do you guys want to listen to? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, give us some hip hop or something. I'm like, awesome, great, let's go. Javelier Taco saying 250 million jobs that are going to be lost over the next few years. Economic collapse and radical die-off that AI will create, and more of concern. But hey, computerized push-ups, yay! It's the thing is, the ball is always moving. Whenever there's technological or even just innovative change happening in society, take the Wayne Gretzky approach. You always skate to where the puck is going. And I get into this debate sometimes with friends and family. We're doing because, I'm a car guy. And some of us are like, okay, electric cars and new fuel cells and new power and energy technology is going to be the greatest thing. And other people are like, but we don't have the infrastructure. But what about all the people who are doing this and the technology thing? The fact of the matter is that it's just what is out there is going to move. And if you're not moving with it, you're going to get left behind. And that's usually what's happened with every industry and work in the fitness sector, health and fitness. And that's one of the things that I keep hearing time and time again from people talking about AI too, where it's like, okay, I can write a legal brief with ChatGPT. The other day, I just went on and I was like, make me a push-up workout. Boom, and it made me a push-up workout. And so people will look at that and be like, well, personal trainers are going to go out of business because you could just go to ChatGPT and say, make me a push-up workout, and it'll make you a good push-up workout. But it's going to be like the internet, though, is when we've got all this power at our fingertips, the people who benefit the most from it are the ones who are going to know how to use it well. And so in the early aughts, and especially in the 2010s, the fitness instructors and the fitness folks who were able to benefit from the internet were not the ones saying, oh, it's just a fad. Oh, I don't need to make YouTube videos or anything like that. I can just do things for my clients in person. And then when people were asking for more from their services, using that kind of technology, the people who dismissed it as being something that wasn't worthwhile got left behind. So AI is going to probably do pretty much the same thing, because that's what's always happened. When the automotive industry started to get built, everyone who's like, nope, horses are going to be the way to go forever, you get left behind. And that's over and over and over. I remember having a debate when I was a young kid with a friend of mine. He was big into computers. And he was like, computers are the way to go, Matt. You got to learn how to use computers. And I was like, nonsense. I don't want to learn how to use computers. I couldn't even type at that time. And as a result, I spent several years kind of struggling to do schoolwork and be productive as a student, because I did not use a computer very well. But once I learned how to use it very well and caught back up, it's like, oh yeah, this is the way to go. It's going to be the same thing with AI, is those who know how to use it well are going to be ahead. But the key is learning how to use it well. I think if there's anything we can take away from the internet revolution, is that we got a lot of power and we got a lot of information and a lot of resources relatively quickly, but we were never really taught how to use it very well. So we can go on YouTube and we can go on the internet and search anything through Google on how to eat right, but we can fall down an endless number of rabbit holes telling you everything from steak is poison to everything to you should be eating only steak, or vegetables are bad for you, or you should be eating only plant-based stuff. And it's all this debate back and forth that's creating a lot of these problems, because we've got a lot of information, but we haven't been taught how to use it well. And we see this also in social media too. Nobody talks about curating social media feeds. Everybody's like, yeah, okay, here you go. Here's the algorithm. And those who don't understand how to use social media to their own benefit are getting manipulated, and they're getting all this information that's kind of, I wouldn't say brainwashing, but it's more like emotional manipulation if you don't know what you're doing with it. Because it's very easy for it to happen. Happened to me late last year, where I was going through some changes in just my relationships and stuff. And just because I was lingering on a certain post on Instagram for 0.3 seconds longer, that was telling the algorithm feed more of this kind of content towards me. And I started falling down these really dark, menacing rabbit holes that were really affecting me mentally because I wasn't aware of it. And I wasn't curating my own experiences. So it was using me, I wasn't using it. And I find that's happening a lot of the problems that we have with the internet and social media and smartphones and stuff is we don't know how to use the technology very well. And instead, those in power can use it against us. And the same thing's going to happen with AI. So the more we're looking at AI going, it's a fad, it's a gimmick, or, it's only for people in certain industries and stuff, the more the chances are that we're going to get run over or left behind by it. And I want to prevent that from happening to you, my friends. So here's a couple of the tips that I'm going to give you that should help you with that on how to use it for your benefit. A couple of other questions here. Christopher saying, hey, Matt, I've been working on uneven chin-ups. Very good. I like those. I've been using your Veterano Plus program. Awesome. Now it's the CC Plus program for the past 2 months, but I feel that I've hit a plateau at 2 reps. Do you have any tips to improve my form? I wouldn't so much improve the form. I would look at varying up your rep ranges there. So you can adjust your progressive pull-ups of what you're doing there with uneven, of bringing your hands either closer together or having your assistance arm not so mechanically disadvantaged, so you can get some more reps with that. So 2 is really good, but you're really going heavy there, my friend. And that can be a very good thing to do. But when we're looking at strength training programs, we want to have variety in our stimulus as far as time and tension. So it never fails. Anybody who does a lot of high rep training or spends a lot of time in a set will probably break their plateau and make more progress if they can go heavier, like what you're doing. And those who like to go very heavy will probably make more progress if you can decrease the resistance a little bit and get some higher repetition ranges, like 8 to 10 or so. So play around with that where you're using a lighter progression and you're being able to get more repetitions. And then you go back and forth between the two, and you're probably going to find they're going to ladder up with one another. Nico is saying 90s hip hops or reggae for me for music. Absolutely. Reggae is really good to work out to. I've got a couple of clients where they will always have reggae playing, reggae and first wave ska and everything. And I get the Toots and the Maytals playing and stuff. And I don't know why, but it just puts me in a really good mood and makes me feel good as well. So I second that. Carpe Diem saying, great tactic to get us all caught up on the World Wide Web of destruction. Enjoy while you can. They'll eventually take free speech, yada, yada. See, no one takes anything from us. It's given up willingly. That's the way that the society we're in works. Nobody's being manipulated by social media. We do it willingly because we don't know what we're doing. When I was getting lost in a lot of dark, dark rabbit holes on the social media, it was entirely my fault. 100%. I don't blame Instagram or TikTok and Facebook for feeding me that stuff because the algorithm was just giving me whatever I was asking for. The problem was I was asking for the wrong things because that's how I was emotionally feeling at the time, and I was not aware of it. But yeah, when technology is going wrong for me, it's all my fault. I don't blame Facebook or Instagram for that sort of thing. I blame myself. Because when I know how to use it better, now things are a heck of a lot better in a much better place because I know how to use it better. My fault. Crack. It's good to see you. Hey, Matt, I've been having fun lifting weights and I'm using a lot of calisthenics for warm-ups. Have you considered doing a video series for lifters for warm-up, the squat, dead, and bench? Yeah, I mean, it's basically just lighter versions of what you already are doing. So always remember that fundamentally, it's all the same thing. Right now, I'm making a video on using isometrics. And a lot of times I find that people are really overthinking their approaches if they're using different modalities. So people are asking me now, because I've been doing a lot of isometric stuff, like, okay, so how do I use isometrics for building strength or for warming up or for things? Or, how would I use calisthenics for warming up for weights and things like that? The answer is you do exactly the same thing either way. You're not really fundamentally doing anything different. If you're doing heavy progressive pull-ups, for example, versus, a barbell row or something, you're actually not doing anything different. I know the flavor of the exercise is different, but it's kind of like if you asked me, how do I drive to the airport? And I was like, well, what are you driving? It'd be like a car. Okay, here's how you get to the airport. Well, what if I drive a pickup truck? Oh, totally different way. It's like, why? when we're building up our bodies, when we're building muscle and strength and stuff, or when we're warming up, the principles are exactly the same no matter what you're using. Yeah, you want to use something that's lighter. You want something that gets you in a good range of motion. You're working on tension control, engagement. It really doesn't matter if it's calisthenics or weights or bands or whatever. All you want to be focusing on with your warm-up is getting those muscles to fire and ramping up your nervous system. And it doesn't really matter what you're using for that. It's the same principle either way. You're just using a different vehicle to get there. So don't overthink it. How would you warm up with calisthenics for weights? Same way you'd use weights to warm up for calisthenics, and vice versa. You just use a lighter version, get the muscles working, gradually ramp up, and then get onto your heavy stuff before you get too fatigued. All right. So we're talking here, he's saying social engineers lead people unawares. Definitely they trick us to screw ourselves. They're not tricking us. They're just giving us what we want. Everything in society right now is a business. Facebook's a business, and social media is a business, and a big, McDonald's is a business. And a lot of people get really concerned about the fact that they're making stuff that gets us addicted and things like that, as they should. They're a business. Every business that ever gets created is people sitting down going, what do we give? How do we get people to want more of what we're selling here? And yeah, they're looking at data and they're engineering things and stuff like that, but we're the ones driving the ships. Businesses are not in charge, my friends. Big tech is not in charge. We're in charge. And this happens a lot in fitness, where businesses will try to get people to want something that people don't truly want. And it never goes well because you can't manipulate people into wanting something that they don't want inherently. So there's this, like when McDonald's is always trying to go with the healthy meals and healthy food and everything like that. Why? I was just listening to a podcast about how in the 90s and stuff, they tried to turn a bit of a leaf, and they're like, okay, we're going to get people active and fit and concerned about their health and fitness. And it bombed. It was terrible. And I was thinking, why? You don't go to McDonald's for Whole Foods, right? It's kind of like if you ran a Harley Davidson dealership and tried to sell bicycles. You're trying to sell something that people are walking in there that don't want. If they want organic salmon fillets on a bed of rice, they go to Whole Foods. If you want a nice, satisfying, greasy cheeseburger and fries, you go to McDonald's. Don't confuse things back and forth. So always remember, and this is probably the biggest lesson to take away from this, is you're in charge. And the only thing that's preventing you from not being in charge is believing you're not. Because the internet, the algorithms, and coming up AI, everything is based on your decisions, my friends. You're the one in charge. And the only way someone can take that power away from you is people saying, we're not in charge, we're being, they're in control of us and stuff. No, they're not. We are in charge. I'm the one picking up my phone, scrolling through and doing a Google search of, how to do 1 billion push-ups and everything like that. I'm the one making those decisions. So when it comes to our health and fitness, the first lesson that's probably the most important moving into this stuff is that you're the one in charge of things. I tell this number one rule to my clients all the time, the first thing I see them. Rule number one, you're in charge. You have 100% veto power over everything I ever give you in a workout. I could say, do 100 push-ups, and you could say, I don't feel like it today, and I'm totally powerless to make you do it. The internet can't make you do anything. Social media can't force your hand. And the same thing is going to happen with AI. I can say, ChatGPT, make me up a workout program. And it could be like, great, here's a workout program. But I'm the one who has to decide to do it. I'm the one who's like, yeah, that exercise isn't so good for my knees. So whenever we're looking at these electronic overlords, the only reason they ever become overlords to us is if we voluntarily give up that power to them. And it is 100% a volunteer effort. If we look at it and be like, yeah, I don't like what this person is saying on this social media post or anything. Yeah, that's not the way I want to go or how I want to live my life, which is how I got my power back from the Instagram rabbit holes I was in. And you can go on a lot of social media stuff these days, like YouTube. I watched this weird video one time. I didn't even know what the hell it was, but all of a sudden a lot of like very dark misogynistic stuff started going into my feed. I don't know why, but the algorithm somehow from that video I watched, it was telling me, get all this misogynistic ideas, across my, so I can go in and be like, not this, not this. I don't want this. I don't like this video. I don't like this message. I can tell YouTube, don't show me these things. And it did. I'm in charge of what I have in my YouTube feed. And the same thing is going to happen with AI. When we go into ChatGPT and we say, make me a workout program, always remember that it's only giving you information off of what you're asking for. So we need to ask better questions. And more importantly, the information that's coming to you, you have full control over the veto of anything there. So if ChatGPT makes up a workout program or a diet and you find, this isn't quite working for me, that food isn't making me feel so good, change it. Fitness is 100% open source. You're the one in charge all the time. And the moment someone else convinces you they know better than you, that's when you lose that power. And so when we're looking at using AI, we want to use it for the same reason that I give, videos and things like this. I'm just giving you ideas. I'm not going to ever tell you what to do. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you to go run 100 miles, but you can say, yeah, screw that. I'm not doing it. You're in charge. Don't ever forget that, my friends. Milano, excuse me, saying, hey, other day someone in the gym was saying there's no strength without conditioning and cardio. Do you know something about correlation of strength and cardio? Great question. So there is a little bit of overlap there, because always remember that when we are conditioning our body, because conditioning could mean anything, the ability to do anything at all, including strength. When we're looking at our ability to do something, always remember that every exercise and every type of physical activity is built from a number of variables and ingredients. Everything requires stability and mobility and conditioning and cardio and mental focus. Like there's 1,000 things that can influence how well you do any particular exercise. And conditioning, from like a cardiovascular standpoint, is certainly part of that. Absolutely. But to say that the one thing has to be there in a high degree in order to get this other thing is a little out of context. Because yeah, if I do a set of heavy squats, that's certainly going to get my heart rate up. Now, does that mean I need to be running 10Ks every weekend and doing Metcons and everything to get my heart rate up in order to do those 100 squats a little better? It can help, but it's probably not going to matter all that much. Conversely, like we were talking about earlier, those the 2 repetition uneven pull-ups, you could run a marathon in sub 3 hours. It's probably going to do absolutely nothing for your ability to do those pull-ups. So here's the way to always look at it, though, is whenever we're doing any type of activity or exercise, you want to be paying attention to what may be the limiting factor in your ability to do it. Is it stability? Is it your mobility? Is it your cardiovascular conditioning? Is it your strength? And so on. So if it's limiting you, like I'd love to be able to do these heavy lunges, but my heart is hammering. I just can't seem to do the conditioning well enough, then yeah, maybe the conditioning can help. However, if you're doing those heavy lunges and you're out of breath because you're not breathing, which is very much the case, all the conditioning in the world isn't going to help you at all, because what is hurting you is your ability to breathe correctly and smoothly in a relaxed way during the exercise. You could have the conditioning of Captain America. It ain't going to help one bit. So that's why we always want to look at it like, yeah, it is a part of what we're doing, but is it really a limiting factor? And if it's not, improving it's not going to help you. Or you could do it just because you like it. So Joseph Bello, it's good to see you, is coming on saying, hey, Matt, been working on my pull-ups. I only get 6 or 7 reps with an iron grip, which works more biceps, 8 or 9 with neutral grip. Which do you think is better for new to pull-ups? Oh, great. Man, Joseph, if you are new to pull-ups and you're getting those numbers, congratulations on you. A lot of people who are new to pull-ups can't do hardly any. So you're doing better than you think, first and foremost. So you change up your grips is the bottom line. Change things up as you like. Don't get too locked into one particular grip. Yes, as you get more into the progressive style of pull-up exercises, where you'll be using primarily an underhanded grip because that just gets the hand closer to your center line. But become proficient with a number of grips. Don't get too lost into this grip is better for this and this grip is better for this muscle and stuff like that. Work your entire pull chain, no matter what the grips are. The more we improve our neuromuscular proficiency along a chain, the grip shouldn't really matter that much. It's like, yeah, I feel it in my back with a wide overhand grip. And if I have a neutral grip, I feel it on my back. If I'm underhand grip, I feel it in my back. If I'm close, I feel it in my back. We want to be engaging the muscles proactively rather than reactively. When that happens, the grip and everything is not nearly as much of a concern, and your numbers are pretty close to themselves, so it doesn't seem like you're really that far off anyway. Because some people, they're like, yeah, I can do 20 underhand, but like 3 overhand, in which case they've got some work to do, particularly with their engagement in their back. But use a variety of grips. Change it up during the workout. Change it up every other workout. It's fine to have a favorite grip that you like to work with, but don't be afraid to mix and match and switch and swap and everything, and you'll be better off for it. And you'll probably also be better off for avoiding injuries that way too. Federico Rodriguez, excuse me. Ugh, what is in this tea? Holy smokes. Hey, Matt, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you there. When is your video programming isometrics coming out? Hopefully by the end of today. So I have been going absolutely crazy busy lately, my friends. I've got so much on my plate and it's now starting to cool off. So I know I haven't been coming out with a lot of the YouTube videos. I try to get them out like 3 or 4 a week. I think I've gotten 2 or 3 out in the past month. I've just been so busy, especially with the move here and everything. But hopefully by the end of today, if not definitely tomorrow, that will do probably be coming out. But the bottom line, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, is that a lot of times people just way overthink it if it's a new modality. But fundamentally, all strength training methods do the same thing. It's time and tension. That's all there is to it. And then it's just the application is different for what you're doing for that time and tension when it comes to your strength anyways. So AI, how can we use this to the best of our benefit? Well, it's always most beneficial, like with the internet itself or social media, if you have an awareness of where you're going to begin with. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we suffer from with using the internet and social media and soon to be AI is that we don't really have much of a direction to go into. So whatever gets suggested to you seems like a good idea. And that's perfectly okay. It's kind of like walking into college and not really knowing what you want to major in. So you take a ton of electives to kind of try things out and see where you like to go. But the more decisive you are about what you're looking for, the easier it's going to be to filter out the 99.9% of the fluff out there that doesn't serve you very well. Case in point, like yesterday, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's a big CrossFitter. He loves doing it. Every time I talk to him, he's like, oh, I did this workout today and that workout today. And a friend of mine was asking, he's like, did you ever do that? I'm like, yeah, I dabbled in it back in the early aughts when it was really getting big, like in 2010, 2013 kind of thing. But it wasn't for me. It's like, why not? It's like, because I don't give a damn how well I can do burpees. I'm not a performance guy. When I'm doing my strength and conditioning stuff, I care about how fast can I ride my mountain bike? How strong am I in a particular exercise? And can I just make my muscles bigger and stronger? For me to do a set of heavy pull-ups and then go for a run would be a waste of time. It's like, yeah, but it's about your conditioning. It's about your overall fitness. I don't care. Always remember that your fitness is about going after what you want. If you don't give a damn about doing pull-ups, why the hell are you doing pull-ups? There's zero good reason to do them, because everything in fitness boils down to it's either desired or required. So it's required if your goal is particularly that thing. Like I have to pass a pull-up PT contest or not contest, but a requirement to do this job or whatever. Okay, then it's required. You got to do them. Sorry, them's the breaks. But most of the time, it's not required. So if it's not required and you don't want to do it, there's no good reason to do it at all. Zero. So always remember that when it comes down to, like I was saying earlier, you're in charge. Feel totally free to tell whatever methods, whatever exercises, whatever approaches out there in diet and exercise to go piss up a rope. Because if it's not important to you, that's not going to be something you're motivated to do. Like I don't run for anything. I can't run very well. Now, if I wanted to be an Ironman or a triathlete, that would be a big problem. But I'm not. I never need to run. Nothing I do requires running. So I know a lot of people out there would say, well, you've got to be able to run to be in shape and stuff like that. No, it's not. Everything out there is relative to our abilities. And most stuff you're always going to suck at anyway. So it's really important to get more dialed into exactly what you want from the things. But unfortunately, it's not the case. We're scrolling through social media. We're not looking for anything special. We're just saying, give me whatever. It's kind of like the new version of channel surfing, but if you go downstairs into the TV room back in the day and you're like, I want to watch The Empire Strikes Back, bang, you're focused. You know exactly what you want. You queue up your VHS or your Laserdisc of Empire Strikes Back, or even you could be like, I want to specifically watch the Battle of Hoth. So you scrub forward or you fast forward to that part and you're like, yeah, I got exactly what I wanted out of that. And that's how we want to use the internet. That's how we want to use social media. That's how we're going to want to use AI, is have a definitive goal, a purpose, a use behind it. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, someone else is going to tell you what you should be looking for. And that's, again, where we give up our power, where you forfeit it. But always remember, you do have the power for yourself. And the only way you lose it is if you forfeit it. No one can ever take it away from you in the digital overlords. Or even in, I know it's a kind of a weird analogy, but even in the movie Terminator, like they gave the power to Skynet because they said, okay, we don't know quite what's going on. Skynet, you take care of it. And then Skynet was like, thank you, I'm going to enslave humanity now. We gave it up voluntarily in the movie. And that's exactly what goes on now. We give the power to the social media and the internet and soon to AI if you don't have a purpose behind what you're doing. But if you go to ChatGPT and you say, how do I get stronger pull-ups? Or even more specific, how do I go from doing 8 pull-ups to 10 pull-ups? Or more specifically, how do I do pull-ups so I feel it more in my lats? Bang, now the more specific you get to that sort of thing, the better it's going to be, because it's exactly what you're looking for. And you're not going to get sidetracked by all the people who are trying to say, pay attention to this and pay attention to that. And you got to pay attention to these things. That's when we get distracted. And again, that's when you lose your power. Maintain it for yourself, folks. Alden saying, would you recognize assisted dips and pull-up machines for beginners? Or if so, how would you use them? Yeah, exactly. So fundamentally, they're doing the exact same thing as using bands or using progressive or regressive, in this case, technique. You're just taking resistance off. So whenever we're looking at different methods, all we're doing is changing the resistance. And resistance doesn't really do anything in and of itself. You add plates to the bar, or you make it harder with the assisted pull-up machine, or easier, or whatever. That doesn't inherently do anything by itself. All you're doing is you're changing the application for your strength. Remember that your muscles do what they do because your brain is telling them what they do. This is why I mention it in all my books: Overcoming Isometrics, Micro Workouts, Grind Style Calisthenics. Everything about your fitness comes from your brain first and foremost. The exercises are more superficial, external stuff that isn't really that important. So when you're doing the assisted pull-ups, for example, all you're doing is you're taking off resistance from your body. That's it. So you're saying, okay, in order for me to do pull-ups, I don't need to create as much tension in the muscles in order to lift myself up, because the machine is reducing my body weight. It's the exact same thing as seated pull-ups, or it's the exact same thing as doing pull-ups with a band. It's just different ways of doing the same thing, decreasing resistance so you don't need as much tension in your muscles in order to do the repetitions that you're doing. It's all fundamentally the same thing. And then it just boils down to the flavor that you like. Some people could be like, I don't like bands. I don't know. It just feels kind of weird. It's funky to set up or anything. I'd much rather use the assistance machine. Great, do it. Why? Just because you like it. That's a perfectly good reason to do it. It's like, I don't know, it just feels better whenever I'm doing this. Fantastic, good. That alone is good enough reason. But we got to keep in mind what we're trying to do on the fundamental level, because your body doesn't change because of your workout program or how many reps you're doing or what exercises you're doing or anything. It changes because of how you're influencing things on the fundamental processes of fitness. That's what happens. And when we're not focused on those fundamental processes, then you can get distracted by all the, are bands a good way to do pull-ups, or should I use an assistance machine, and all these little details that ultimately don't really matter very much. Lorenzo, hey, is asking, hello, Matt. I haven't seen this before, but if you want to do an Overcoming Isometrics only workout, should I warm up? The answer to that is absolutely. For the same exact reason you do any other strength training, warm up for any other strength training. And because again, you're just strength training. I know it can look really different, but it really isn't. There's not really, on a fundamental level, there's really not a whole lot of difference between lifting free weights and doing isometrics or doing calisthenics. It's kind of like back in the day when I used to train this kid, and every other time I'd see him, he's like, okay, I totally changed my diet around. And I'd be like, oh yeah, what'd you do? And he's like, okay, instead of barbecue potato chips, I'm eating salt and vinegar potato chips. Yeah, the flavor changes, but he's not really doing anything different. It's like, dude, you didn't really do anything. It's the same thing with isometrics. It's just another form of strength training. Do we warm up for strength training? Absolutely, for the same reasons. Number one is we want to just kind of get our body prepared and get our joints into it, because even though we're not moving, the joints is subjected to some degree of stress. But more importantly, we're trying to ramp up our nervous system. I just did an isometrics workout with my isomax this morning. And one of the combinations I really like is the deadlift followed by the hack lift, where you have the bar behind you and you're making like a squat. And you'll notice with the quantifiable metrics on the isomax, the first set you do, you may set it for like 200 pounds and you can't get it to beep. And then the second one, you get it to beep maybe 2 or 3 times. And then the fourth one, I'm like, I need to add load onto this thing because my nervous system's ramped up. I can put a lot more force into the muscles. Same exact thing with dynamic exercise. I might warm up with some rows, then I might do some pull-ups, then I go into my weighted pull-ups. If I just jump right into my weighted pull-ups, then I'm just going to be like, oh gosh, this is really hard. Like, oh man, that's so heavy. You're ramping up your nervous system to accommodate the resistance application for the amount of tension you're trying to create. Same thing in dynamic, same thing in isometrics. And I know it doesn't quite feel the same way, especially if you're using non-quantifiable tools like the ISO trainer and stuff, but you'll still feel it. If you jump right into an isometric as hard as you possibly can, it's going to feel more like, oh gosh, oh boy, that's quite a shock to the system. But if you do a set that's like at 60% of your effort, the next one's like 80%, then 90, and then you're going real all out after 2 or 3, you'll notice you can generate a lot more force, a lot more comfortably. So yes, warming up definitely important for isometric training. Alden Ryan, good to see you. I say my grip strength always gives out first when I work out. I think it's because it gets tired from my manual labor job. Should I use lifting straps or potentially overtrain my grip? I would say just keep doing what you're doing. When you usually have a weak link in your system, and we were talking about this with conditioning, right? Like, okay, if I'm doing lunges and I'm just can't quite, gosh, I'm so winded and stuff. You know what's a good way to condition? Lunges. Keep doing exactly that. Remember that one of the most basic principles in all of exercise science is the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demand. And one of the lessons of the SAID principle is you gain that which you challenge. So your workout right now is clearly very challenging for your grip. You know what's going to happen to your grip when it gets really challenged? It's going to get stronger. So I would say don't change anything. Sure, go ahead and add in some, towel hangs at the end of the workout if you want to give a little bit of supplemental work, or play around with fat grips or grip grenades or something like that just to challenge it a little bit. But I would bet you anything that give it a few months and your grip's probably not going to be much of an issue after a while. And I know when you've got a manual labor job and stuff, but that's one of the things to consider is you've always got stressors on your body that are going to influence your workouts in some way, shape, or form, which is a good segue into the next lesson I have about how we can best use AI. But the bottom line is when you are training, if you feel like, okay, my grip is still giving out, but I want to do something that's going to hit things, instead of using the lifting straps, I would go with more of a single joint exercises if I were you. So let's say you're doing pull-ups and your grip is not really happy with it. You're like, gosh, I just can't keep doing this. Great, get some rear flies and bicep curls. Really smoke out those muscles, because it's not going to take nearly as much grip strength, or at least it shouldn't, but you're going to be able to hit those muscles individually with a lot more of a fatiguing workout as well. So when it comes to using the AI, I was just saying, the thing about fitness that's kind of funky and a challenge for all of us is that your result that you're looking for is due to thousands and thousands and thousands of variables and influences in your life, many of which you have no control over whatsoever. Now, that's something that may seem a little discouraging, but don't be, because the stuff you do have more control over is still very empowering. But I can't control my genetics. I can't control my age. I can't control my training history. I started training calisthenics seriously when I was 30 years old. Now, I know kids out there who can pop right up into a handstand and walk around doing handstands and do a perfect bridge when they're 7. If they continue training in that way, they're going to be in better shape for many ways by the time they're able to drive than I was at 30. I can't control that. There's nothing I can do about that sort of thing. I wish I had gotten started in calisthenics when I was, 15, but no, that information just wasn't out there yet. So I got started when I was 30. So when we're looking at the ability to do things that are best for you, always remember that you know your circumstances better than any AI program. You know your circumstances better than any workout that you find on the internet or even any coach like myself. This is, again, why I always tell my clients, you're the one in charge here. You walk into this gym, I can't control your life. I can't control what you do out here. You could walk into this gym and say, I'm on 3 hours of sleep. I was partying all night and I haven't eaten in 2 days. Okay, it's my job to somehow still make that work. And yes, I've got 100 ways I can do that. So it's not something I'm hard with, but I always tell my clients this because I want you to come in regardless of what your circumstances are. I mean, obviously don't come in if you're sick as a dog or something like that. But the bottom line is your circumstances are always changing and your circumstances are unique to you now too. So if I go to ChatGPT and I say, make me a push-up workout, it's doing the best it can with the general information and data it has, like off the internet and everything. But it doesn't know you. It doesn't know you personally. And yes, as we get more ensconced into AI integrated into things like our smart watches and our devices and stuff, it can then take data from your daily life. But even then, the accuracy of those things is not terribly on point. And you may still have variables that you're aware of that AI is not going to know. You could wake up tomorrow and the AI Robot Extreme Exerciser 5000 says you should go for a 5-mile run today. And you look out the window and you go, it is 30 degrees and rainy. I hate running in the rain. And it could say, well, I know what the weather pattern is. It's going to be nice around noon. You should go at noon. And you're like, I have a work meeting at that point. Okay, fine. Then you should go in the afternoon. I hate working out in the afternoon. I'm going to go and I'm going to go with this spin class instead, kind of thing. You're always going to know more about you and your circumstances than AI will. And because of that, you want to take those factors into consideration on an individual level. AI is great, again, a great place to give you ideas. It's a great place to give you suggestions. It's a great place to get started with something like a general push-up program. But remember that these are just ideas and they are based to some degree on guesswork. If I go to ChatGPT and say, what's a good recipe for a healthy lunch? It is guessing about what I need. It's guessing about what I want to do. So remember that it is based some degree on guesswork. Don't make it your overlord. Again, the power is only forfeited voluntarily. If you tell ChatGPT, I've got this workout program I just got, I'm going to follow it to the letter no matter what. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter how my joints feel. It doesn't matter what I want to do. I'm going to do this program no matter what. You gave the power to AI and you just forfeited it from your own self. But if you say, okay, ChatGPT, make me a push-up workout that's going to take me 5 minutes. And it gives you something, you're like, okay, great, awesome. But man, you've got 5 warm-up sets here with push-ups on the floor. No, I know for me personally, I can get ready in 2 sets and I'm better off warming up with push-ups on the rings just because of the stability or whatever. I just like doing it. Okay, what do? You change it. You make the change because you know you better than AI does. And that's not even an AI thing. That's just how fitness works in general. That's how we get in better shape and have more power from social media, the internet, coaches, or hell, even back in the day, we would read bodybuilding magazines and they would have the workout of the month in the bodybuilding magazine. And I used to tell clients all the time, don't make the magazine your overlord. The magazine is not in charge. You should be. So if it says do a barbell shoulder press and you say, my shoulders are not so happy with that, I'm better with dumbbells, what do? You switch to dumbbells. Things are only in charge of your program and your diet and your workout and your exercise and your life if you give up your power voluntarily. Don't give it up. You make the change. I get emails all the time from people saying, "Oh, you recommended doing this type of program in your books and everything, but I feel like I should change it in this way or something." And I always tell them, "Yeah, change it. Yeah, go right ahead." Because if there's something in the back of your mind or even emotionally, and you're like, "I just feel like I'm better off doing it this other way," you're probably right. Don't make me in charge. I don't want to be in charge. I just want to be in charge of my own fitness. And so if you do that, you'll again retain your control and you will be able to make better decisions for yourself, because ultimately that's what it boils down to, is making good decisions. And no matter how good AI gets, you're still the numero uno supreme decision maker in your life when it comes to your diet, your exercise, and your lifestyle. A couple more here to wrap up. Spicy J with the Jack Garfield. Good to see you. Is there anything from what we've learned? It doesn't matter how fancy new technology it is. It's a basis for success is always a good understanding of the fundamentals. Absolutely. Because that's what a fundamental approach does, folks. It doesn't tell you anything about how you're supposed to eat and exercise. It's about understanding those three fundamental processes that govern your fitness, because that's what's really in charge. And they are governed by the principles of Mother Nature and human nature. Just to quickly recap, you can go through my videos and find this stuff more. I should do another explainer video just to cover this a little bit more, because that's what my next book is. But you've got the principle of physical conditioning, which is creating a physical stimulus followed by adaptation. You have the stimulus of dietary support, which is consumption versus expenditure. And you have the process of motivation, which is perceived cost to benefit ratio. Those are the three things that are ultimately in charge of your fitness. Those are the three things that are in control of how fat you are and how strong you are and how much work you work out and what you like to do. Those are the things in charge. They're the real overlords. And no, you can't control them because they're in control by the laws of mother and human nature. So we can't control that. AI can't control it. That's for damn sure. But you can influence it by your decisions and your habits and your courses of action. And so when you look at your circumstances and you get through experience of saying, I know that this is just the best thing for me to do, that's going to be far more power than any AI, because it's based on the experience. After working out for over a year and you say, I just know that I feel better if I work out this way, or if I warm up this way, or if I don't do it this type of diet and stuff like that. There's nothing in the internet and technology that's going to be able to tell you that other than your own experience. So by knowing your experience and keeping those fundamental processes just front and center of that's what I'm trying to influence, you're going to know what's best for you by a long shot. And it's also going to be flexible, and it's going to continue to adapt and adjust and modify according to your circumstances. So as your environment changes, your preferences change, your goals change, your resources change, all these things are always in a state of flux. You're going to be able to make instant decisions on what's actually best for you. And you're not going to need to use AI or social media or the internet for anything other than, again, just some ideas and to get a little bit more new information on what you can do. But again, you plug that in to influence the process, and then you have your experience and your own decisions. And that's where things are really going to help. AI is not going to be an overlord unless you let it be an overlord. It's supposed to be supplemental to what you're doing. It's a tool. It's something that you can use for your benefit. But the moment we start to use it as the be all end all or the saving grace and stuff, that's when we get into trouble. And I know I made the analogy from earlier, but exactly that's why, all hell broke loose in the Terminator movies. They gave the power to AI. They said, we don't want to be in charge, put AI in charge. And that's when they got in big trouble. But the bottom line is, it's not something to discredit. It's not something to necessarily fear, but it is something we want to learn how to use. Because if you learn how to use it well, it can be a very powerful tool. And I don't know really much. I'm always late to these parties kind of thing when it comes to technology, whenever there's something new coming down the pipe. So if you're like, how do I use AI? Like, you probably know more than I do, because the things that people are using AI for, it's like, wow, you can do that? That's amazing. So I'm usually not really up to date on the latest technology and stuff. But when it comes to the basic principles of how to use it, it's not going to change. You put yourself in charge. You make your best decisions. You use it for ideas and information, Go to it with specific challenges and problems that you want to overcome, and don't use it as just this general consumption of information that you don't have a point to. These days it's crazy, but I use the internet for like general entertainment, like Netflix and things like that. But I think someone asked me a week ago or 2 weeks ago, they were like, who do you follow online and who do you watch on YouTube and stuff? And the answer is almost nobody, because I'm already working on my own stuff. I know what I'm trying to do to improve my pull-ups and stuff. What do I need the internet for? I'm not going to go and be like, how can I do more pull-ups? I know what I need to do more pull-ups. And when we're looking for information from people, the gold standard is still going to be one-on-one coaching. One-on-one is always going to be the best way to go about it, because it's personal, it's in real time, and it's also one human being interacting with another. It doesn't need to get fed through some sort of an algorithm or something that needs to be, processed and stuff. It's something that can be dealt with in real life manner, versus having to go through some sort of a digital network and then just crossing your fingers and hoping it comes out well. I know I've been kind of going around a little bit. Let's see if there's some last minute questions I can get to. Frederico saying, hey, Matt. Oh, that was the one on the isometrics. Wow, I really scrolled really high up on that one. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, last one from Spicy J again, saying, any suggestion on how you'd go about starting a food log? Want to eat more and better. Made a document just listing what I ate in simple terms. Might include pics and how I feel, but want to hear from you. That's a good idea. Yeah, logs are, funny enough, coming full circle here with AI and everything like that. The simple journal is the first ever, I guess you could say, like AI system we ever had. Because when you are journaling to anything, I did this when I was in Japan. It was an amazing experience. I did a daily journal. I was like Doogie Howser, boy, if you remember that show, where he had a computer journal he kept after every episode. I did the same thing when I was in Japan. And it was a habit that I probably should keep, because when you are journaling, you're both inputting and assessing the information you're putting in to make better decisions. And it can be a food log, a workout log, this is what I did today. I'm having trouble dealing with this, whatever. Journaling is an amazing thing, because essentially it does the same thing as AI. Is you're putting in information, your brain works on it, and then generates ideas and solutions. So in a way, journaling is the original AI. It's the same kind of general process. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. So one of the best ways I like to keep food logs is photo logs. You all have photos, cameras in our pocket with our smartphones and stuff. You just take a photo. And I like photos because it gives us a little bit more of a visual representation on things like portion sizes or what something was. You can have someone say, oh yeah, I ate a sandwich for lunch today. It's like, okay, so what is that? Is that like a little sandwich that I got out of a vending machine in Japan that's, about yay big, like 6 inches square? Or is it a foot long that I got, we've got this sandwich shop in Vermont called Martone's, and they pile on the meat like 2 inches thick. Like, it could be of various things. But when you have a photo, you look at it and be like, oh yeah, that was a big sandwich. Okay, yeah, that was easily 1,500 calories right there, kind of thing. We can assess, or at least I certainly can assess, information a lot more when it's visual versus represented by words and numbers. This is one of the reasons I don't like spreadsheets and stuff, because I can look at a spreadsheet all day long and be like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. But you give me a photo of, this is what I had for lunch today, and it's like, oh dear Lord, man, you brought your appetite, I see, kind of thing. So you don't need to write all that stuff down. But I believe, I could be wrong on this, in the Photos app of your smartphone, you can make notes on photos. So you can write down, felt really lethargic after eating this, or energy level was a 1 to 10 or something like that. So that's a good way to go about it. The other thing you can do is have just a general, and I like to keep logs on just clean sheets of paper, because you're not restricted to format that way. That's why I created my scoreboard progression log. Whenever we have spreadsheets, or I know there's a lot of food logs out there that you can download, and MyFitnessPal and things like that, anytime we've got boxes, it's essentially restricting you and saying you've got to put this information in, but that's it. You can't add anything else for the most part. Maybe there's a note section or something. But when we have just an open sheet, like a Google Doc, then you can put anything you want in there, and it can evolve and it can change over time. And yeah, you can put photos in there as well. So I would go more of that route, because all you need to do is get an awareness of what you're doing. That's all. That's all you need to do is get an awareness of what you're doing with those log. And one of the things also to keep in mind too is the very act of keeping a log will influence your behaviors. I knew a fitness coach one time who always told his clients, keep a food log for the first 2 weeks I meet with you or whatever. And I was asking him, so how do you assess their information? How do you look at it and and tell them what to do? And he's like, oh, I never look at the food logs. And I'm like, you don't? I was like, no, I don't care. He's like, I'm just getting them more aware of what they're eating. That's it. It's like, I don't care what they eat. I don't care how they're eating. I just want them to look at it and be like, oh, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm eating on a daily basis. Okay. And they instantly know. It's like, okay, yeah, I should be not eating half a dozen Oreos every hour on the hour or whatever. It's just to bring about that awareness, because again, that's what journaling does. It's data input, assessment, analysis, and then your brain comes to conclusions saying, this is what I need to change about it. That's the whole journaling process. And it really doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as it's something you can stick with, because journaling is like exercise and diet in and of itself. You just need to be that consistent. The easier you make it, which is again why I like the photo log, it's just click, or keeping something on your phone versus having to pull out pen and paper and stuff. Whatever you can do to make it easier is going to be something you can stick to and much more reliable as well. Oh, what the hell? I've been talking a while here. Let's get some more. Super Prime 117. Always good to see you again. Say, don't you need both because they have different effects? Oh, sorry. Conversation back and forth. I always forget to remind you folks, if you put a hey Matt, I know that's directed to me. But Fitness saying, hey Matt, I'm starting judo. Fantastic. Good for you. What types of conditioning muscle groups are most important? You're going to find out real fast from doing the judo. Obviously, things with a rotational manner to it, extension from it. So bridge work, swings, deadlift. Look at the movement patterns you have in your judo. And then whatever exercises are fairly close to those movement patterns. But again, this is a big mistake that a lot of martial artists make, where they'll get into martial arts and they'll be like, okay, I'm doing these martial arts. Now, what kind of conditioning program do I need? 9 times out of 10, you don't need one, because the actual program, the practice itself will be adequate for most people. I know a lot of times people are like, oh, you've got to be doing all these metcons and you got to, honestly, strength and conditioning really doesn't do a whole lot for athletics. It really doesn't. It's the cherry on top. It's supplemental. And the more advanced you get, the more it kind of matters, just to get that little edge over your competition. But honestly, I know plenty of martial artists who kick some serious tail, and they don't do anything. They don't do any strength and conditioning, but they train their ass off when they're in the dojang or the dojo or the training hall and stuff, because they're really good at what they do. But again, like I was saying earlier, pay attention as you get more experience from judo. What are some of those weak links that may be holding you back? Like, oh, my grip is giving out a lot more with judo. Or, oh man, my back and my extensors, it feels all in my lower back, like my hips aren't engaging. Good. Then base a program off of those kinds of things. But don't blindly go about it. Be like, okay, I'm going to build up this huge, very high maintenance, complicated program that takes more time away from your actual judo training. And you're just basically hunting and pecking and hoping with luck that something's going to work out for you. I know from my experience, and as a Taekwondoist, my hips are weak and they're stiff. So I'm very well off working on my hip strength and my hip mobility. It takes me 2 or 3 minutes, not a very hard thing to do. And that makes a hell of a difference. Is being able to do one-arm push-ups going to help me as a Taekwondoist? Probably not. Once I got to the point where I could do 10 to 20 just decent half-assed push-ups, that's probably going to give me as much of my punching ability as I think I would need. But the ability to punch better is going to come from actually doing the punches. Exactly. So the judo is going to be the most important thing from there as well. Oh, Super Prime's following up. Good one here. Hey, man, aren't isometrics dynamics very different because one works dynamic strength, the other works static strength? No, not at all. So when we're doing any type of activity, remember, it still boils down to just the creation of tension and time for how long you have it. There's a ton of research out there that shows that isometric strength carries over extremely well to dynamic strength. If you practice isometrics very in a focused way, like it's a big part of your program for several weeks, you're going to notice everything you do dynamically gets a lot better. Yes, adaptation is specific to imposed demand. So there is, always some degree of only so much reach with any type of exercise or training you do, but it's not that limited, because always remember that dynamic strength is just about creating muscle tension. Isometric strength is just about creating muscle tension. And then we're using the ability to generate more muscle tension in the applications of the judo, the running, the lifting the weights and stuff like that. That's why a lot of people who like isometrics, they do that and they're like, oh yeah, it helps with everything I'm doing dynamically because it carries over. Fundamentally, it's not important really that much about whether or not you're moving. It's just the generation of tension. Someone the other day, we were talking about isometrics. I was like, yeah, I'm getting really more into the isometrics these days. And they're like, is that the one where you just, pulling on the straps and that we did? Because she did some sessions with me. I was like, yeah, that's the isometrics. And she's like, that can't work? I'm like, why not? She's like, you're not doing anything. And I said, well, you're generating a lot of muscle tension. She's like, okay, fine. You're generating a lot of muscle tension, but that's all you're doing. It's like, well, that's all strength training is. All the other stuff is just the supplemental for the application you're doing, the range of motion, the stability that you're using, and all these other sort of things. But no, there is definitely some degree of difference. Like if you did only isometrics for several months, and then you did a dynamic exercise, let's say lunges and stuff, your muscles definitely will feel a little something different as far as like, oh, okay, I need to be able to generate tension during elongation and stuff. So you're right there. There is some degree, but for the most part, no, there's really not that much difference. It is different, but it's not that different. It really isn't that remarkably altered. Editing wish saying, sorry, that's just more marketing mumbo jumbo blah kind of stuff. All right, folks, I'm going to start to log on off. I've got some repair work to do on my car, but thank you everybody for coming in on your Sunday, chiming in with your questions. And always remember that as we're moving forward into new digital technologies and stuff, don't forget that you're the overlord here. You're the one in charge. It's your responsibility to curate the information, to use it as you see fit, and don't let it overcome your emotional state, your mental state, and have too much control over what you're doing, because ultimately these are things that are supposed to be in your control. You always have control, and the only way you don't have control is if you voluntarily forfeit them. And you're better than that. You're stronger than that, and you deserve a hell of a lot better than that. Use them as the tools that they are. Don't let them use you. And that goes for everything that's been developed and everything that will be developed. So on that note, I will remind you to go out, stay strong, be fit, and live free.